It seems the general consensus is that things aren't going great. Well, I think the best way to make this world a better place is to focus on ourselves, our relationships, and the organizations and communities we serve, all to have a grassroots approach to societal improvements. My hope is that the following information will provide at least one small nugget of something helpful in making intentional improvements in your life.
All right, thank you for tuning in again. My name is John, and I have with me today Brittany Dicken, who is running for Circuit Court Judge, and very excited to have her here today. Brittany, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How's life? Life is good.
Good. We're just like staying busy, campaigning, parenting, all the things.
I can't even imagine. I see you everywhere. I see your signs everywhere. You've been walking in parades. You've been holding meet and mingles, and all of this with. How old is your daughter?
She's 8 weeks. Actually, she'll be 2 months tomorrow.
Yeah. So you have a lot going on. How is that going? How's parenting going?
It's good. Honestly, I can't complain. She's been like a really good baby. She is like, sleeping, eating, pooping, all the things babies are supposed to do. So she's been great. And we've had some really great babysitters and friends that are watching her, my parents, my husband, obviously. So it's been all hands on deck with the campaign and with the brand new little one, but it's been good.
That's excellent. Yeah, it seems like you have a nice support group there, which is perfect. But I can't even imagine just the stuff now are you continuing because you have a legal practice as well. Are you continuing that as you're campaigning?
So no, I took what would be my maternity leave to focus on the campaign. So I'm not like handling any cases right now while I'm doing the campaign, which has been good because honestly, it's like a full-time job between Charlotte and the campaign. I really can't do anything else. I am involved in some other things in the community that I'm still sticking with. I'm an attorney advisor on a board, and I'm involved in the Saginaw Bar Association. So I'm on their board. So all the boards that I sit on, I'm still doing that right now, but not currently practicing at my law firm.
Cool. And I'm going to get into a little bit about your practice and what got you into the field that you got into in a minute here. But I just have to dig right in deep. I mean, what is your passion here? I mean, you are on all these community boards. You were getting, I believe, in family law, and now you're going for circuit judge, and you've got a young daughter, and you are still going. I mean, 100 miles an hour. I can't imagine you're getting much sleep. I just can't imagine. So I'm just curious, what's your drive? What's your passion? What's brought you to this point?
Yeah, I'm really, really passionate about public service. I always have been ever since I was a kid. My parents would take us down to downtown Detroit, and we would volunteer at the food banks, gleaners down there, about like sending food out to the local community. And then in high school, I was involved in all sorts of community service projects and building things for families. And I've always been on the go. I've never been the type of person that likes to sit and relax, and I'm constantly wanting to challenge myself. So I get involved in all of the things because I have a lot of interests, but most of it's rooted in public service. So a lot of the time that I spend on boards, I like other things too. I like sports and I like to travel. But most of my like community involvement has been in public service. It just keeps me going because it's so rewarding. I love working in public service because every day I feel like I'm doing something good for my community. I'm doing something good for the people who live here, and I'm making an impact on people's lives. So that's really like where I've centered my legal career around. And then also kind of my free time as well.
Okay, that is extremely awesome. A lot of the different, like some CEOs I've been talking to in my consulting and some of the podcasts that I've been doing, we dive deep into kind of the status of the world right now. And what it seems to be is that everyone has a pretty general consensus that things aren't going great, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stress, right?
Yeah.
But it seems, and so there's all these people that want to change the world, right? But we're doing it by like standing on some metaphoric soapbox on social media and screaming to the high heavens about how other people should think and what's bad and what's wrong, or maybe do this and not do that. And really what my belief is, and that, many people believe this too, is we have to focus on our own homes, right? Our own families, or to focus on our own communities. If we really, really, really want to make some sort of change to this world, I don't believe it's really going to be accomplished through social media, maybe bits here and there, but to really just focus on your circle of influence. And it seems like you've dove straight into that. That is admirable. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. And I think I always used to tell some of my employees, you never come to the table with a problem without a solution. And I think right now, social media, especially, like it's just a lot of people talking about problems, but not a lot of people presenting any sort of viable solution for the issues. And so everybody just keeps going, oh, here's a problem. But like, what are you doing about it? Or how are you contributing to finding a solution? So I think that's kind of where we've like lost people in social media. It's just like a platform now to complain about the world, but like not that many people getting their hands in the ground to like fix what's happening.
I fully agree. Or even like really fully thinking some of these issues through, right? Like some of these issues we're encountering it's like there's this surface level argument that is happening on social media and mainstream media. And honestly, with politicians and stuff, it's like, okay, you're wrong and we're right. Or, it's just always pointing a finger across the aisle, really, or blaming somebody. And, but there's actually this like there's way more nuance to so many of these issues, and we're just like caught in this perpetual nonstop finger pointing, when I think a lot of us are actually more on the same page than we realize, but it's lost in the detail, lost in the nuance, right?
Yep, I agree. So much division right now. And when you really start to talk to people, you start to see that we're actually not that divided. It's just like, I don't know what it is. I don't know why we feel like we need to fall on a side, when a lot of us, I think, kind of fall in the middle. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, with elections coming up here in 2022, and then of course again in 2024, I am very curious, very curious to see what happens. Yeah, and I think I have a personal theory on that, and I call it stress loves an enemy. We are stressed. I mean, we were stressed. Okay, the history of the last several decades, stress, especially in America, but all over the world, has been slowly increasing just because of we live fast-paced lives where our faces are buried in technology, right? We're not doing many things that really help stress relief. And then all of a sudden, then COVID hits, and then we've got some nasty political folks out there, and then all this different stuff going on. And I think it actually feels good to have someone to blame, right? And it goes back to what we were just talking about, like, well, you can blame someone, we don't have control over it. So let's focus what we do have control over. And for you, that's what I was very drawn to, wanted to interview you. So thank you so much for doing this. Because you're taking your life into your own hands, and you're impacting the community, not just in all. And I haven't even talked to you much about all the other stuff you've done that you just mentioned, but now running for judge at such a young age, which is so cool. It is time for our generation to step up and start taking these positions, and you are not hesitating. So talk to me more about that. How did you know you wanted to go into that?
Well, thank you. First of all, I think, this has been a life, I shouldn't say lifelong, it's been a career long goal for me since I started in the law. This is kind of the position that I knew I wanted to end up in. I wasn't initially planning to do it now. Just a brief little history of what happened in Saginaw. We were supposed to lose this judge seat. The state had come in and basically said, there's too many judges in Saginaw for how many cases you have on your docket. So the next judge who was going to leave, they were going to remove it. But which I love, again, we're talking about division and people coming together. Senator Horn, who's a Republican, and Representative Amos O'Neill, who's a Democrat, both represent this area, Saginaw County, and they came together and basically saved this position. They did a bipartisan effort to save the judicial seat with the help of our chief judge in our county, Judge Jackson. So that was great, but it was kind of last minute. It was signed by the governor in February of 2022, just a few months ago. And so it was kind of like all the horses in the race, like as quickly as you can, because it wasn't something you planned like a year ago, knowing that the seat was coming up. In my mind, the next seat that was coming up was going to be in 3 years when the next judge age turned out. So when the seat came available, what drew me to it right now is it's a family law seat. And I have almost all of my experience up until recently has been primarily in family law, mostly in public service, serving the county of Saginaw. And so it really is just, it was the seat I always wanted, but I thought we were going to lose it. So I was just going to go for a general circuit court seat in 3 years. But when this came up, and given my background, I had a lot of phone calls coming in, people wondering if I was going to run for it. Which is so wonderful that I feel like, people are so supportive of the work that I've already done for the county that they were like, we need you in this seat. So I was 8 months pregnant at the time. So it was a difficult decision to say, yeah, I'm going to go for it now. So I kind of dragged my feet for a couple weeks, just because there were some other things, but mostly like I was 8 months pregnant. Can I do this with a little one? And, I just said to myself, like, this is your career long goal. And my husband, Chase, and I talked about it, and he's so supportive of me going for it. And basically I just said, we all have barriers and we all have challenges, and there's always going to be something. It's never going to be a good time. It's always going to, there's always going to be something there. And at the end of the day, I want to be able to show my daughter, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. If you have dreams and you have goals, you're going to achieve them regardless of what your barriers are. So my barrier was just having a little one. And luckily I have such a great support system around me that I decided to just go for it. And now all those people that were calling have been so supportive and helpful. And I really have like a good crew around me to help with this campaign. So that's been awesome.
That is so neat. You're so right. We can always find an excuse not to do something. I think you had a very valid one, and you still you still overcame it. That is great. Now, I am quite ignorant, I'll admit, in the world of circuit judge and what all that means and the seat. So you just sparked tons of questions, and maybe someone listening here might have some of the similar questions. So you said the seat that opened up was specifically a family law seat for circuit judge. So how many different seats are there?
So it's a little bit interesting because it's not technically a family law seat. It's just Saginaw County has divided our docket to better serve the community by having one judge hear all of the family law cases. So technically, as a circuit court judge, a circuit court seat would hear civil cases over $25,000, or the values over $25,000. And then they would hear your criminal cases, like your criminal felonies, your higher criminal cases, and then also your family law cases. So your divorces and your paternity cases, child support, parenting time, custody, those things. But we've kind of organized it in our county specifically that the one circuit judge just hears the family law docket, while the other judges focus on the civil and the criminal dockets. So it's still technically the same position. It's just how we've done it here in Saginaw. And then you have, in a different court, you have your probate court judge who also handles some family court things, PPOs like personal protection orders, and then guardianships. And then you have juvenile court, which is your basically your foster care, your removals. If somebody's going to lose their, not custody, but if they lose like their parental rights for a child, that would be outdone in juvenile court. And then also juvenile court would handle your juvenile delinquency cases. So it's kind of like, they're kind of on the same level, but they handle slightly different things. And that is somewhat unique to our county.
Okay, got it. So counties have some liberty, some autonomy within themselves. That's awesome.
The chief judge decides. Your chief judge, it rolls over every 2 years. You elect a new chief judge for your court system, and then the chief judge can make that decision. So our chief judge right now is Chief Judge Jackson. We've had one judge here, the family law docket, for probably about 8 years now. 7-8 years. And the plan from chief judge right now is that will continue at least for the next 2 years. So theoretically down the road, depending on the chief judge, it could change, and we divide back out your family, civil, criminal.
Got it. I got it. And I was gonna ask that too. There's obviously some sort of hierarchy. So then the step above you then would be the chief judge, is what you're saying.
So the chief judge is just another circuit judge. He sits same position. It's just the state appoints a chief judge. Basically, mostly the counties agree on who's going to do the chief judge position. Bless anybody who does that, because it's kind of a thankless job. You don't get extra money for it or anything. It's just you take all of the extra stress in the county and handling like the courts. So like when the COVID pandemic hit, the chief judge had to like make all those decisions just on top of his normal docket. So it's more of like a volunteer situation, being the chief judge, but also the title, you know, you're the chief judge of the circuit. So that's cool. But it's not like anything additional. It's just kind of a appointed position by the state.
Excellent. Got it. So let's dig into why family law. What got you? I mean, you've been an attorney, I believe, for 7 years?
9.
9 years. All right.
Yeah, 9 years. You know, originally I was interested in public service, and I said that all along in law school. I thought I wanted to do criminal law. So when I was in law school, I went to law school in North Carolina. I worked at the DA's office, the district attorney's office, which is like our prosecutor's office here. And I was working on the homicide and sexual assault team. That was really interesting. I was like kind of sticking with that. I came back to Saginaw. I clerked for Judge Jim Borchard, whose seat I would be taking over if I was fortunate enough to get this seat. That was really, really interesting. Again, in the courts, I served a little bit of time at the Saginaw prosecutor's office working on appeals. And then my first job out of law school, I worked for Judge Fred Borchard as a law clerk. And as a law clerk, it's a great job, because especially if you don't know what you want to do, because you get to kind of dabble in a bunch of different areas of law. You're essentially like the judge's like right-hand man or woman. You write opinions for the judge, you prep all the cases, you sit through all the trials, you handle all the juries, you do all the research, the legal research. So it was a really great job to kind of figure out, you know, is this the right path? Is criminal law going to be the right path, or do I want to do something else? And so when I worked with Judge Fred, at the time, there was a position that opened up at the front of the court office. And since I went to law school in North Carolina, I wasn't even familiar with the front of the court office, because Michigan is a little bit unique in that we are the only state that has a front of the court office. Typically, states have offices of child support that just receive and distribute child support. They don't offer any other services, where Michigan has this front of the court office that's actually really great, because it provides so many additional services for the community. Like we can help with custody and parenting time issues, your child support issues, your paternity issues, mediations, all those things. So a position opened up there, and I talked with my good friend Karina about it. She was serving there as a staff attorney at the front of the court. She had previously had the same job I had with Judge Fred Borchard. And so she kind of gave me the lowdown about what it was about. And I had worked on family law cases while I was working with Judge Fred. And honestly, it's not really something I thought I was going to get into. Like I said, I thought I was going to be in criminal law. But I really loved working with the families. And I come from a really close, big family. We don't have a ton of divorce in my family. My dad's parents were divorced, but I saw kind of like how that impacted my dad's family. My mom's a teacher. She works with kids. She had an in-home daycare at our house for like 10 years. So I had a lot of experience working with families, with kids. My mom is a special needs teacher. So we had a lot of special ed kids in our home, which was great to kind of understand that perspective and how parenting changes when you have a child with special needs. So I kind of had a really good background for family law. So I gave it a shot. I went to the front of the court. I was a staff attorney there, which basically I had like a docket of about 6,000 to 7,000 active cases in Saginaw County. And I handled all the custody, parenting time, and child support questions really for those cases. I also went to court like every day. I would basically be an advocate, or I was an advisor for the court. So you'd read the cases, you talk with the parties, and then you would advise the court on what's going on and give recommendations on custody and parenting time. So I did that, and then I was for about 4 years, and then I was appointed by the chief judge as a circuit court referee, which is like a magistrate, basically. You sit on a bench, you wear a robe, you have a gavel, you have it, it's all recorded, it's a mini courtroom.
Nice.
And you basically make like the initial decisions in cases. And so then if people want to appeal the decision that you make, then they would go up to circuit court for the appeal. So I loved that job, and that's kind of when it solidified for me that I definitely wanted to be a judge, because I was like a mini judge, a pseudo judge there sitting. And I really, really loved that position. I like being kind of the neutral, unbiased decision maker, and helping people work things out. I got a lot of joy out of sitting down at the table with two people that could never see each other again, and they'd be okay with that because they had some horrific thing happen in their divorce, but you bring them to a conference table and you just have an open and honest conversation. And sometimes at the end of the day, they would leave with an agreement and like half a smile on their face. So I felt really good about that and good about the work I was doing. I saw some need for improvement in the office. So after I was serving as a circuit court referee, the friend of the court position, the director of that office, came available, and I was appointed as the director by Chief Judge McGraw. And then I served there for about 3 years. And we can talk all about that. I could talk on and on and on what I did at the front of the court, but basically just trying to improve the services that we were offering to the community that I had kind of witnessed over the previous 5 years I was there that needed improvement. So that's my path. That's how I got to where I'm at.
That is excellent. Thank you. And wow, I have about 100 questions now from all of that. But I think the thing that I tend to gravitate towards a lot is, well, we talked a little bit about, improving communities. That seems to be a central theme for you. And then what's really neat is even boiling down to you're almost acting as kind of like a mediator, right, between couples and things like that. And I mean, that's like there's a lot of struggle out there in relationships. And I just first of all, thank you again, because it's very admirable that I just love seeing young folks, millennials like ourselves, hopping in and really trying to make the world a better place, one relationship at a time, one community at a time. So this is just kind of a random question. I'm assuming you've had to have gone through fairly extensive communication training, and I'm a big advocate of, done tons of studies and papers on emotional intelligence and things like that. Have you is that part of a core curriculum that you had to go through? Do you do any studying of that on your own, or is there ongoing education with your job?
Yeah, so this is like a threefold question. There's required training I'm a certified domestic relations mediator. That comes with a required training. It's a 40-hour training for the mediation, and then an 8-hour domestic violence screening training. So it's a 48-hour training total. So I am certified in domestic relations mediation. The remaining trainings are, Michigan doesn't have a continuing education requirement, which CLEs, they're called, continuing legal education. Most states require that attorneys complete so many CLEs every year. Michigan does not, which is interesting because the laws are changing rapidly. The laws have changed a ton since I've been out of law school 10 years ago, but I don't have any requirement here in the state to continue staying up on top of it. So anything that I do is basically on my own fruition. I love to learn. I've always loved to learn. I want to know more. I'm the type of person that is sitting on the beach with a law book, my head in a law book, reading instead of something that's fun. I'm reading about some area of law I don't know, just because I love to keep learning, especially about the law, because it's so interesting. But so I attend lots of conferences that come with some of those trainings. They'll talk about, also a wide array of things, from the nitty gritty of the law to just how do you talk to people, or how do we address mental health issues, or what do you do when you see signs of domestic violence, and how do you handle a case like that? So there's a wide range, but you kind of have to go out there and do it on your own. It's not really something that the state requires. So Michigan Judicial Institute does a really good job putting on conferences with really great information. The Family Law Institute does a really big one in November of every year where it's like a 3 or 4 day and you attend all sorts of seminars. And then I was involved in the Michigan Friend of the Court Association. I was a regional director for this mid-Michigan area. So I served on a state level, and that association has some really great conferences where they bring in speakers. We talk about, certain topics all related to family law. So yes and no, there is some required, if you're going to do certain things like mediation, you have to be trained in that, but just in general, no, it's up to you to stay on top of it.
So interesting. Because, a lot of it's fine. I'm the same way, lifelong learner, and everyone, they may be watching movies or reading fiction. I'm reading some sort of nonfiction,
Yes.
whether it be like leadership or self-help or
Yes.
whatever,
Yeah. If I'm going to read, I want to learn something. I don't want to just
right.
read,
I know. And one could argue, in which I've gone down this road before, like, oh, it's good to let your mind escape and use your imagination a little bit. But I'm like, I just want to know things, and I learn more and more. But what's funny is, we talk a lot about this. So in the aspect of learning, IQ, intelligence, right? You obviously need a good amount of that to get through law school. You take your bar exam to get to know the nitty gritty of the legalities of it all. And this is true in almost all organizations, right? You have to have a certain level of intelligence to be able to get your foot in the door and to get your degree and to be successful in your job. But then I mentioned earlier, emotional intelligence, that second piece is what really helps people, A, be successful, B, be honestly happy, because we're talking about self-awareness, we're talking about self-management. And then also relationship management is a big piece of the emotional intelligence as well. And so that's something that can be learned forever, right? Like that's something you continue to get better and improve upon. And I'm just thinking how great that is that you are going for this type of position and you've been in this type of position, because I'm sure there are people out there that are just like, this is law, this is how it's going to be. And if you don't have a little bit of empathy when you're trying to mediate, if you're not able to read those and to have, it's not just about saying, and I'm making some assumptions here, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not just about saying, hey, I know the law, this is the way it's going to be. It's actually kind of like catering to a conversation and making sure it comes to a positive resolution. Because if not, I mean, you're impacting the happiness of two individuals sitting right there when you're doing the mediating stuff or anything you do. So there has to be some empathy involved and some subjectivity involved as well. So maybe there's my question. How do you balance the subjectivity and your empathy, your natural feelings of empathy and intuition with the letter of the law?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things I want to comment on. One about you were talking about intelligence, into the amount of intelligence that you have to get through things, which I agree with you, but I also disagree in some respect, because I think more than intelligence, you were talking about emotional intelligence, that to me is the biggest thing. But the second biggest thing is, are you a hard worker? I don't care if you're the smartest person in the room. If you're not willing to put the work in, I mean, I will tell you, I graduated from in law school. I graduated 4th in my class out of 397 people.
Wow.
Was I smarter than 395 of those people? No way. But I worked a lot harder in law school than those people. I was at it every single day. And I think, you don't have to be the smartest one in the room to be the most successful one in the room. So there's a lot to be said about putting your pedal to the metal and grinding every day. And I think that will get people further in life than just like natural intelligence. So that's that.
Agreed.
To your question, I think, family law specifically, you have to have compassion for people, empathy for people, patience. And then you have to, with the law, there's a lot of discretion, unfortunately or fortunately, in family law. I'm not sure. I'm still undecided on that issue. I think it depends on where you're at and who you're in front of. It's a good thing, right, that I have a little bit of leniency when I'm speaking with people on what I'm going to do on a case, because there is some discretion. It's a bad thing in that the outcome of your case really depends on who you're sitting in front of. And so you might sit in front of one judge in Saginaw County and get one ruling, but you try the same case in Midland County and get a completely different ruling because there's so much discretion. And when I say discretion, what I'm mostly talking about is when you're trying to decide custody in a family law case, there are 12 factors that the court evaluates. They're called the best interest factors. And it's things like, the love, the party's capability to give love and affection to the child. Well, I'm going to make a decision on that factor after I talk with you. But if I asked a completely different set of questions, I might get different answers. And so I'd have a different outcome. So I think to answer your question, the balance in family law between the letter of the law and having compassion and empathy for people is not as hard as maybe in other areas of the law, because there is so much gray area in family law. It's another reason why, and part of my campaign has been, as I'm going out and talking to people, it's another reason why this position specifically is so important that you have experience in family law. Yeah. Because it's not just reading the law and applying it. You have to have, I've heard thousands of cases in Saginaw County for family law. And I will tell you, my perspective on handling cases is different than it was when I first started in family law, because the more cases you hear and the more times you apply these factors, the more you understand how the law works in family law. And so coming in with no family law experience would really be a disservice to our community. So I'm glad that I have the years that I have, because I feel really prepared for this job because of my experience and how many times I had to utilize that discretion working through some of the legalese and the best interest factors, and reading all these law books. Every time I open it's called a bench book. It's like a concise book with all the family law. I read it periodically, like at least once a year, because again,
fun stuff.
on the plane, but every time I read it, I learn something new, or I look at something differently than I did the year before when I read it. So it's a really interesting area of the law because of that. Because of the discretion, it's very interesting. My perspective is constantly changing on it.
Well, I absolutely love to hear that. I think if you get stuck in a certain mindset and you somehow make an identity out of your opinion at one point in time, that is just destined to be wrong at some point in the future, or at least, if you're not learning and growing in that way, you're flatlining at that point.
Right.
So are you unique then? As I believe there are five other people going to be circuit judge. Are you unique then in having the most experience in family law?
Yeah, I definitely have the most experience in family law, but because I spent every single day for 8 years in the courts handling family law cases. If you have a general practice and you're an attorney, you may handle some family law cases, but you might handle it amongst other types of cases. You have criminal cases, or you have general civil cases, and then a family case thrown in here and there. So I tell people, everyone can say they have experience in family law. If you handled one case, you technically have experience. But when I say I have experience, what I'm talking about is I've handled thousands of cases for the county, and I've spent thousands of hours in court over 8 years on family law cases. So I definitely have the most experience in family law. Not to say that the other candidates don't have something, everybody's running on something, right? So everybody has something unique or something they have to offer. But what I have to offer is I'm the only candidate that served public service. That's what I've dedicated my career to, is public service. And I'm the only candidate that has that extensive family law experience.
Cool. Good for you. And so let's talk a little bit more about that, right? So we've talked about intelligence. We've talked about emotional intelligence. We talked about being a lifelong learner. We talked about your experience. And all of those things are kind of molding together to be who you are and who you're going to be as a circuit judge. But I want to dig a little bit deeper. I talk a lot about true north, right? What's your true north? What's your true purpose? Yes, you want to build communities. Yes, you have a passion to help families, at least transition successfully, or do the best you can for families that are separating, or any sort of other domestic disputes. But what's the deep down driver for you? What's your true north? You have all these other things laid out. what helps you decide the next step you're going to take in a case or the next step you're going to take in life?
I think, like you just said, I'm never one to get stuck in a place. I'm always growing, learning, moving forward. I think, I want to be impactful in whatever it is that I'm doing. So impacting the people around me or the communities or families. That's my purpose right now. It's hard for me to say, in 10 years from now, where am I going to be? Because my decisions are made basically, I'm constant, like I said, I'm constantly growing, learning, changing my perspective. So I think I would like to be a judge for the remainder of my career. That's where I want to serve my community. That's where I think that my knowledge base is best served. But 10 years from now, I might have a different perspective on life, or I might have a different answer, or I might have overcome some other barriers or road bumps that I didn't anticipate. And so I think it's really, really important to not get set in a specific mindset. I'm a planner. I'm a type A type of person, but I don't like to plan things that I don't have control over. And I think like our futures are one of those things. Like I can have goals for where I want to be, but I don't want to set myself on a path of like something extremely specific, because I think then you're not open to the unexpected. You're not open to changing your mindset based on things that you didn't anticipate. So I think, I'm really, really passionate about making sure that we keep moving the world forward, and not just in the law, but like in our medical fields, in business. I mean, that's how we get better. That's how we grow. And when I took over the front of the court office, it was part of what I needed to address was we were kind of stuck. It was a little bit archaic. We didn't move forward with the world. And that is so, so important to service to the community, but also like to stay relevant in like what you're doing, So I just want to keep growing and moving forward and doing what I can to be impactful in my community. But I don't want to get myself stuck in a little box that I can't get out of because I didn't open my mind to, whatever is to come my way.
Yeah. Intentionality with flexibility, right?
Yes.
And that's what I think a lot of, I think everybody, honestly, but I like to pick on millennials a lot because I am one. But a lot of us kind of don't have major intentions on what we're doing right on a day-to-day basis. So having some sort of future goal is definitely a good thing. But I do think when you get tunnel vision to that goal and you forget to focus on the journey, because as you said, a lot of times that'll branch off and you'll see like, wait a second, you know what? Even though I was going towards this, which is great to have that intentionality and a goal to shoot towards,
Yes.
but yeah, to keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel along the way, because who knows what's going to come next. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have my goal when I graduated law school was criminal prosecution. That's where I went, and so I took a law clerk job and then I got a branch off to family law. I wouldn't have even ended up where I was if I didn't keep my mind open to another possibility. And really, this goal was public service. It wasn't really that I wanted to do specific, maybe criminal prosecution. So it's not that I didn't reach my goal. It's just that goal was a little bit broader than I thought it was. It wasn't criminal prosecution. It was public service,
I love this so much because this is a lot of the stuff that I consult on. There's a lot of stuff that we podcast on is just like having that goal and having that mission, having that purpose, but letting it evolve as you go and just, living to serve. I mean, that is, just think if everyone was focused on that, right? If all this stuff you see on social media and all this unrest, if we're just focused on serving, whether it be just a relationship at a time, in your own family, even, or in your communities, that's just super neat. So a lot of the stuff I do focus on, it's leadership, right? I think we are all leaders, whether you have a title or not. You're leading your own life through an intentional living standard, or in your family, in your community, in community groups, church groups, wherever you're ending up. And you are certainly walking that path right now to becoming a community leader. So give me just a general, what does that mean to you? What does leadership mean to you?
Yeah, I think what you said, I think I want to point out something you said, because I think so many people like don't know that or think about that like we are all leaders. I know there's this misconception, I think, that there are like leaders and followers.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have a title that's a leadership title doesn't mean that you're not doing something in leadership. And I use this a lot when I was the director at the front of the court. I was trying to improve an internal issue that we had, internal relationships in the office, because I think when you're better inside, you're better outside, right? So if we can fix what's going on here internally, we can be better public servants to the community.
Yes, that's awesome.
And a big lesson there was that you can be a leader. You can be a lead. I don't care if your title is receptionist or secretary. You can lead by example, by changing your attitude. If you have a positive attitude and you show people that, you're going to have this positive attitude in the office, you are leading a group of people into thinking positively. Or if you want to, we started committees in the office, like a mental health committee, or not mental and physical health and wellness committee, a social committee, a community service committee, and people could step up into those roles to help lead the office through an effort, like a community service effort. What are we going to do over Christmas time? We're going to go all together and donate our time at the Veterans Hospital or whatever. So I think it's really, really important to recognize that regardless of your title, you're leading, you can be a leader in something, and you don't have to fall into line. You don't have to be a follower. There's some leadership in your life, whether you see it or not. I think for me, leadership is, especially in the community, I just want to make where I live a better place. I mean, that's like my focus, and not just where I live. Like I would love where other people live to be a better place too. But I'm focused on this community right now. And if there is anything I can do to help the community, I am all in. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I serve on like some other boards, things that I'm passionate about. One thing that's just kind of like fun is I'm a soccer player. I've played soccer most of my life, until I tore both my ACLs at 30. But anyways, Saginaw Township has been wanting an adult soccer league forever, but they couldn't figure out how to organize it, find the right people to organize it. So in 2019, I worked with the township, and I was connected with some soccer people in Midland, where my husband and I play. And anyways, I got a adult soccer league off the ground by working with the township and the Saginaw County, or the Saginaw complex. And like, that's just an example of like something fun I want to give to the community, where like, we just needed someone to step up to the plate and like get something rolling, and that was something fun to bring to the community. But I still think it's like, what are we doing to make where we live better? And that's where I see myself as a leader is, I'm an attorney advisor on a board, or I dedicate my time to organizations that I think are doing a lot of good here in the community. And so I think when you're a leader, you need to be out in the public. You need to be showing your face at events that are important. You need to be giving your time, if you have it, to other areas in the community, to really show your leadership in other aspects that you have to offer other than just like your career. So that's where I'm hopeful is if I'm lucky enough to take the bench, or honored enough to take the bench, I would definitely be a community servant in other ways outside of my job. People would be seeing me around quite a bit. I think it's important to see our bench out doing other things for our community. That's going to keep it, moving, like I said, moving forward and being better.
That is so excellent. And I agree with so much of what you just said. I didn't know you very well coming into this, and I just had this feeling about you, that you were really a good person with a good mission, and you are proving it to be true in this conversation. First of all, just a kindred spirit here. I actually have created and teach a course at the Franklin Credit Union called Leading Without a Title, and it's pretty much everything you just said. Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's 100% like what you're talking about. You do not need a title to lead. And even if you do have that leadership title, don't try to lead by the authority of that title. Lead by being, a servant, right? Lead by by compassion, right?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
great. I would love to take that course, but
I would love to. In fact, you know what I'm doing is putting it into right now. It's kind of very specific for Franklin Credit Union, and I'm making it a little bit broader to all organizations. And I'm putting it into some sort of e-learning format. So I'll certainly let you know.
there you go. That would be a great thing to offer to our government, our public servants, those agencies where people might not feel as appreciated in their jobs. Some of those are, like I said, are thankless jobs. So I think that that's a really good lesson to people leading without a title. Like this is what you make it. You are in charge of your own attitude and your own happiness. So step up to the plate.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're making decisions on how you respond to things, and you by doing nothing, that's a decision as well. I think so. When I created this course, it really was specifically to help, a specific place of work, right? And it was a workplace course. And what I found is that the vast majority of people going through it are like, wow, this has helped my personal life. This has helped my relationship with my spouse. This has helped my relationship with my adult children. This has helped all these things. And you touched on it earlier. It's like, that is what it's all about. I mean, if you're learning and growing as an individual, whether it's making your workplace a better place, which will then spill over, because as we know, stress in one area of your life is going to spill, whether you are excellent at toggling from work to home to work to home, you are still carrying some burden between the two of them. So I think the more we focus on this, and like you said, you just hit everything that I'm passionate about. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a secretary or I'm sorry, what's the word? A receptionist. It doesn't. Those are so
very important jobs too, and
oh my gosh, yes.
I think people need to. There's like some connotation that like there are certain jobs that are like not that important, and I just completely disagree with that. They're all puzzle pieces to the puzzle, right? And if you lose one, I've had this conversation with so many employees before, like your job is so important, and I want to help you be the best that you can be in it, because if we are not the best here, if this piece of the puzzle isn't where it needs to be, the whole puzzle falls apart. You can't make the puzzle. And I think we need to remind people that what they're doing every day is important and that they are important. And if they don't feel that way, they probably need to find something else where they do feel that way. Because if you don't have purpose in your work, or if you don't feel purposeful in your work, that spills over into your home life. And, you're not as good of a friend or a husband or a wife or a mom or a dad, so I think I'm often telling people, if you don't feel satisfied in this work, or you don't feel purposeful, or you don't feel important, it's probably not the right spot for you. Like, keep looking, because you will find something that you feel that passionate about that's going to make you just a better person all the way around.
I tell you, I've had that conversation with so many over the years, the different positions I've held when I was working down in like Farmington Hills too. People that were just feeling like that they weren't making an impact and weren't purposeful. And I've said so many times, like, listen, you're probably used to a boss trying to convince you to stay here, and trust me, I love you and I want you to work here for me and enjoy working with you. But way more important than that to me is your own personal happiness. And if you're not finding it here, you have to go find it. You touched on a couple of things. So like part of this, a lot of the Leading Without a Title course I have is on emotional intelligence, but I'm bringing in two other aspects. And one of them is systems intelligence. And you really just touched on that, being we're all part of something bigger, right? We are all a piece. There's a reason your position exists within that organization. And so do it to your best and try to make, what if our main goal is just putting a smile on someone else's face every single day, or making someone else's day a little bit better? And if everyone in the world focused on that one tiny goal,
wouldn't that be great?
I mean, come on, right? And so I'm all in with you there. Just a quick story. I interviewed through this other podcast I do called 3Gen with three different generations of us. I'm the millennial. We've got a Gen Xer, and then we've got a baby boomer. And we interviewed a receptionist out of a credit union down in Baton Rouge. And I think we labeled her the chief hugging officer is her title at the organization. She literally will give physical hugs to everyone that walks in. And just a real quick story about it. Someone walked in, Melanie was her name, gives her a hug, gives her all the attention in the world, poured her energy and positivity and love at this person. Come later find out that lady was coming in to withdraw all of her money, give all of her money to her family, and take her own life.
Oh
And
my
because
gosh.
crazy, right? But Melanie stopped that because she is intentional about what she's doing, and she knows the importance of that, whatever position you're in. She knows that importance, and just said, you know what, my goal in life is I want to make a positive impact in everyone I interact with.
That's so great. And, I mean, I lead my life with kindness and respect, because you never know what people are going through, and you never know what impact you might have on them with just a simple smile or a hug or a how are you doing today? When I left my last job, one of my employees got me this little, it's like I don't know, a little frame thing that said, you'll never be able to count the amount of lives that you've changed, or something like that, because you don't know every day when you're leading your work or your personal life, how many people you're touching. And sometimes stories will come around like a year later. You have no idea that you had that kind of impact on someone's life. It seems so insignificant to you, but it was so significant to somebody else, like saving their life with a hug, that's just amazing. I was at the airport this past weekend, and, it was just amazing to me. My flight got canceled, and it was amazing to me how disrespectful and rude people were to the airline staff.
Yeah.
I was like, this person has nothing to do with the flight getting canceled, like literally nothing to do with it. And their job now is to try to help you navigate the change, right? And I just can't even fathom why people think that the route there would be disrespect and to be unkind, because here's a person in a position to help you, and they're standing behind this desk to help you, and your response to them is just completely inappropriate. If I were standing behind that desk, it would be really hard for me to continue to try to help you. I always say kindness goes so far in life, like just a nice smile and being polite. And I understand this is not your fault. What can we do about it? I ended up getting somebody to stand at the counter with me for 3 hours. And he found me a flight somewhere and whatever, but just like, that's just a simple lesson. And like, there's no reason to be unkind to people. You never know what people are going through. Just be nice,
Absolutely. And I think we can all assume everyone's going through a lot right now. I mean, it is just a stressful time. And I talk a lot about how everything we do, we have the power of creation. I mean, this conversation we're having right now, Brittany, has never been had exactly like this before. We're creating something new. And that happens with every conversation you have, every word out of your mouth. It is a brand new creation, every smile on your face. I just can't help but go back to emotional intelligence all the time, but there's actually, the science behind mirroring, and the science behind, your emotion is contagious. If you bring anger, it's probably going to be received and then reciprocated with anger. Same with smiles, same with happiness. And so, you use to steal something from a Dale Carnegie course I took. Her name's Wendy Grohl. I love her. She's from the area too. And she always said, use your powers for good. And I agree. We have a power of creation here. Let's create goodness. And even if you are frustrated and you're angry and the thing that's happening is making you really upset, are you so selfish to just want to throw that all at somebody else and make them feel it too? Is that your purpose, is to make them feel it too?
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right. You have to figure out your frustration is is internal in yourself.
Yes.
Like you don't need to portray that onto anybody else,
100%. And I'm sorry, I would go off on these little tangents, but let's circle back to circuit judge. We still have some time here yet. How do you feel? So this is what's really almost, I don't want to say concerning. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I have ever voted for the primaries, right? And so you've got 5 people. So you need to get enough people that know you to vote to even make it through the primaries, to get that 5 down to 2. And then of course you have to have enough people know you. And I just think, we're in this really weird place where there's so many people not engaged in. It's like, we like to scream about everything we're upset about, but then are you really doing research on who you're voting for? And then I think, especially because you're in a nonpartisan type position. So it's like if someone's just going in and voting all Democrat or voting all Republican, you can't really do that with you. You have to make a decision that I want Brittany Dicken to be in this position. So how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good about the campaign. Like I said, I have a lot of really great support from some really influential people that have helped me tremendously. So that's been great. But in terms of, voting at the primaries, it's just about educating people. I think, I've been going to a ton of community events, lots of meetings, and like my message is essentially the same. I would love people's support, but I'm not going around asking for your support. What I'm asking for is that you take the time to look at the candidates who are running for this position and pick the candidate that you think is most qualified for the job. That is all I want. Because again, I go back to public service. How are we going to best serve the community? I think we're going to best serve the community through this judicial seat if we have somebody in the seat who is the right fit for the job. They're the qualified person, they have experience, they are compassionate, they are respectful, they are fair. Like those are the things that I want to see on the bench. And if somebody reads through all of the things and decides that that's not me, I'm okay with that. Because if you think somebody else is going to do a better job there, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're served right here. And if that's your choice, that's your choice. But I think educated voting is so, so important. I mean, how many times do you go in and you look at the Board of Education and you circle some random name that looks good because you don't know anything about it? I mean, that's the worst type of voting to me. So all I'm asking for in the community is, I mean, obviously I'm running because I believe I am the most qualified, best fit for this job. But all I'm asking for is that people look into it, that you read about the candidates, and that you make an educated voter decision on August 2nd.
I want to echo that too. I mean, come on, but this is the time, right? We have, this is the craziest, in our existence, Brittany, I guarantee you, this is some of the craziest stuff we've ever seen. I think COVID and all the political craziness now by far surpasses even 9/11 for us, right? So if we are ever going to be, and I'm not talking just millennials, no, I'm talking every generation, every person of voting age, if there is ever a time to do some research and make an educated decision so that you want your voice to be heard, it's not going to be on social media, because on social media, you're going to get a bunch of people that agree with you and a bunch of people that disagree with you, and you're not really changing any minds. But if you want to, and you nailed it, Brittany, and you even said, I want to change the community I'm living in. And then you said, but of course you want that for everybody. And I don't think there's anything selfish about that whatsoever, because you understand your circle of influence, and we all have this obligation and we have this ability to influence an election. But like you said, I'll be honest. Hey, I'll always admit my where I fall short. How many times did I just circle a random name, or how many times did I just be like, you know what, I saw a bunch of signs for this person, and I don't do that anymore. I'll leave it blank if I don't understand it. But
yeah,
wow,
if you don't know, leave it blank.
Time to do the research.
Yeah, do the research.
Yes.
If you don't know, leave it blank, because you could be circling someone that you don't align with at all, if you knew anything about them, you would be mortified that you voted for them. Or, so I tell people, if you don't know, just skip it. But also, we're trying to encourage people to be more involved in like what's going on in the community. I understand the judicial seats are not that exciting because they're nonpartisan, but especially a family court seat. I mean, this person who sits on the bench will have a huge impact in lots of people's lives in this community, because the number one area of law that most like general people are going to have some experience with is going to be family law. I mean, you don't have to commit a crime or do something wrong in your business to end up in family court. I mean, that's your divorce, your custody, your parenting time. That impacts a lot of people's lives. And so I think, it's like I said, it's really important to do the research and make sure that you're choosing someone that you think is going to do a good job in that position, because lots of us, in fact, right now in Saginaw, we have about 26,000 active cases in Saginaw.
Wow.
That's 26,000 people currently who are dealing with family law in the county. And that doesn't include all the closed cases, people that have already been through it and already been impacted. So you're talking about a position that's really going to have widespread impact on the community. We better choose right,
Wow. And you are so awesome and humble in that it's not go vote Brittany Dicken. It is do your research and vote, who's aligned with you. And I now know who I'm voting for. And and it certainly is you. I mean, this has been an excellent conversation. And when are the primaries?
Primaries are August 2nd. You can vote absentee now. Anybody can vote absentee. So those ballots can be ordered now. In fact, I think they're supposed to ship out this week under the 24th, the absentee ballots. The only thing, just like soapbox position on the absentee ballots, I vote in person. I don't vote absentee for a couple of reasons. Well, one, I'm voting in person this year because I'm on the ballot. So I don't want to do that. I want to walk in there and check my name. But two, if you vote absentee and you do something wrong on your ballot, your vote just doesn't get counted at all. If you vote in person and you do something wrong on your ballot, it spits it right back out as you put it in the machine and you get a new ballot and you can revote. So I think there is I personally would only vote absentee if I have to. I think if you want to make sure that your vote is counted, you should probably go into your precinct and vote. Because so many people are voting absentee, the line should be a lot less. So I know that deters some people. But you can't vote, you have to vote like a straight party ticket for the primaries. So if you circled the Democratic candidate and a Republican candidate, well, I guess you're going to get a Democratic ballot, but whatever. If you do anything wrong on your ballots, your entire ballot isn't going to get counted. So August 2nd, the primaries, the top two candidates, like you said, John, will go to the general, which is November 8th. Signs are going up. My signs have started going up yesterday. I've seen some other people's signs up last week. So everyone's getting out there, doing their thing, and I'm just going to stay on my path. And I would be honored to have the position if the community decides that I'm the best fit for it.
Excellent. And thank you so much for your time. And I'll do a little sign off here in a second, and we can even have a quick little sidebar at the end here. But any last comments, anything else to just kind of wrap up this conversation?
I mean, I just want to say, I think your message is awesome. I think we have, especially the millennial generation, we have so many good ideas, so many things to offer. I've gotten the comment quite a few times that I look too young to have this position. That's such a funny comment to me because it's, like we all, I can't help the way I look. This is just the way I look, But I think, when you're looking at like experience and like what we're doing to move the world forward, I think we would be best served to have a millennial in a seat like this, or in a lot of our influential jobs in business. We're coming in, we grew up in a different generation. We had technology basically from the get-go. I mean, kind of maybe not for some of us, but from the get-go, we grew up with tech, and like tech is a blessing and a curse in some ways. We talk about social media, but it also is making us more efficient. There are so many things we can offer to the community. When I was at the front of the court, we did online. You can now get your whole child support balances and what's going on with it 24/7 online. You used to have to walk into an office building to do that. Or you can call your support specialist on a video chat like this and talk to them without having to drive to the courthouse and do that. So we're closing a lot of the barriers that people are experiencing in the court system by utilizing tech. And who are the best people to do that? The people who look too young to have this job.
That's awesome.
So I just think what your message about like the millennial generation, how we're serving the community, what we're doing to move it forward. I mean, we are the next generation to keep us moving. So I just would encourage people to be open-minded to the fact that you don't have to look like, your traditional judge on the bench to be the right fit for the position.
Absolutely love that. Thank you so much. So many awesome things we hit on today. Yes, millennials, step up, stand up, and start taking on these big roles. Let's get some diversity in all organizations. Let's lead our own lives with intention, but with our heads on a swivel so we can notice when the path might change a little bit. Absolutely love it all. Thank you so much. I really, truly enjoyed this. It was great getting to know you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much. And for you listening in, I hope you got some good information here. And I hope we get out on August 2nd and get those the primary voting in. And then when it gets down to 2 and we see Brittany's name on there, let's get her elected in.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everybody. And we will, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.